Hey, it's Bill Macheras coming to you live from the Pressbox Overtime Studios, the best that I could do. It's been a while since I've done a show, and I just figured this week with all the chaos with the bracket and the college football playoff and who's in and who isn't in, and now we got all this stuff going on with teams not wanting to play in bowl games, which after doing a little bit of research and probably watching 7 or 8 hours of TV and listening to the commentators, I have a little bit better understanding as to why those teams are doing that. But hey, you didn't tune in to listen to me. I'm going to bring on my 2 guests. My first guest is, of course, my sidekick, used to be the head coach football at my alma mater, Cocoa High School, and Mr. Doug Cook. He had a meeting, but he knows the importance of getting on the press box, and I see he's got his Gator hat. And Doug, I'm glad you made it back in time.
Yes, sir, Bill. I had to go to Indian Harbor Beach City Council meeting, had to speak there, and I got on the agenda early, and I knew I had to be with you tonight. So here I am, my man.
All right, good enough. And also, we got a special guest. I'm going to go ahead and bring him on now. I thought I might save him to later, but you know what? He's got a lot of input. We've spoken to him before. He's a University of Miami fan, so I definitely want to hear his take. And you know him like I do. He's coached baseball. He does a lot of writing for a lot of publications here in the county. And that is my good friend, Mr. Chris Bonanno. Chris, thanks for joining us tonight.
Oh, thank you all for having me. It's been quite a 48 hours or so, and obviously there's a smile on my face based on what happened a couple days ago.
So let's get started. Let me just ask you. You're a Miami fan, and first let me ask you this, because really, you know, when we look at the bracket, I'm going to show that a little bit later on. It was really down to Miami, Notre Dame, and who am I missing?
Alabama.
Who am I missing? Alabama. Thanks.
Yeah.
And that's really the only. So let me ask you, Chris, being a you Miami fan, were you a little bit nervous? Were you anxious? What on the scope of 1 to 10? Where were you thinking they were going to get in, and why do you think they did?
There was a couple of times where I thought, "That's it. We're just out of luck." The first was when they were revealed as 12 a week ago today.
Right.
Actually, right about this time, they were 12. I said that's it. They're I know BYU's ahead. Maybe they, and then right at the end, after that, you saw, oh, Notre Dame's 10. Well, why did they do that? Like, Alabama didn't look good against Auburn. And so then you begin to think, okay, well, what if BYU loses to Texas Tech and particularly gets blown out?
Right.
They then slip us to 11, and at that point, can you really put Notre Dame 10 and Miami 11 because they were respecting the head-to-head everywhere else? They did it for Alabama and Oklahoma. They did it for Vanderbilt and Texas. They weren't doing it for Miami and Notre Dame, and I think that was the Miami fans' big concern.
Right.
I would say this. I got my hopes up when Alabama got announced as 9, because when they got announced as 9, that meant it was down to Miami and Notre Dame. The only thing that went through your head was, okay, Alabama didn't get penalized for losing a conference championship game. Maybe they did the same thing to BYU because they both got blown out.
Right.
But
right.
This is the part I'd have a problem with if I were a Notre Dame fan. How does BYU drop? How does North Texas drop? How does Virginia drop? Alabama loses by 21 and doesn't drop? I got a problem with that.
Yeah.
So I'd understand that. I thought we should have been ahead of Notre Dame. So in that sense, I'm okay with it. I don't love the process by which it happened. In other words, when Miami went to Pittsburgh and blew them out, that should have been, in my opinion, enough to say, all right, we've matched your quality win with Pittsburgh. It's a head-to-head. It's really, really like identical pretty much on the metrics and all that stuff. And Miami's got the head-to-head win. They should have been ahead then. So I understand why Notre Dame fans are upset by the process. But I think most fans, I could be wrong, I think most fans think Miami should be in.
Yeah, and I'm going to put that screen up now. So let me ask you, Coach Cook, where are you with the Miami? Yes, no, and why do you think that?
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, I've been a Miami fan, not externally, but internally, I've been a Miami fan ever since I coached at Cocoa High School. Back in the 80s, all my players wanted to go to Miami. Miami dominated back then, and they were nasty, man. They would knock your head off. So I'm with Miami. I like their quarterback. He has his ups and downs, but they're a good they're a good team. Notre Dame, no, their schedule's easy. Get in a conference if you want to get involved here. But Miami definitely deserves an opportunity to play.
And you both bring up some really valid points. I'm going to go back to you, Chris. And I think, and again, I'm going to be honest with you, Sunday from 12 to 6, I pretty much, whatever I was doing around the house, I had the TV on. I watched 3 hours of the show, and then they had another 3 hours, and I listened to the morning shows. You're right, Chris. I think it's the optics, and what people have said all week long and all weekend is for so long you had Notre Dame ranked higher. And then all of a sudden, you move Alabama up a notch, and again, like you said, BYU dropped out. Alabama did not move at all. And then you've got Notre Dame, BYU, and Miami. And that just I don't want to say they set it up like that on purpose. I'm going to be honest with you. What do they say? You could put lipstick on a pig, and somehow it looks like I'm disappearing from the screen. Hopefully I'll come back. We'll see. If we're good. There we go. But you're right. I think, and really when you look at it side by side, strength of schedule, all that was pretty even. The only thing I will say is pushback. And again, if everything wasn't even, I would say Notre Dame, because one thing I have not heard anybody say that if Notre Dame were to play Miami today, Miami would be favored. But with everything else being equal, even though it was 3.5 months ago, even though if it was only a 3-point win at home, I guess you got to put Miami in. I think the heartache is two-pronged. One, like you said, Chris, the way we got to this weekend just didn't look good. It was like they were putting things in place so that if Duke won and BYU lost, it made them look good. And I'll be honest with you, part of me thinks, and I've heard this before too, and I thought the same thing, they got to have an ACC team in there. So what do you say to some of those comments that, a game 3.5 months ago, I mean, look, FSU pretty much boat raced Alabama, and look where we are today. Should that game 3.5 months ago, and why should that matter today?
Yeah. So Saturday was a roller coaster for me. So there were 3 games. There were 3 games of importance, as it turned out 4, by the way, to Miami fans. The first was the BYU thing was the thing that unlocked the rest of the games. If BYU had won, we're not having any of this discussion. Both Miami and Notre Dame are out. The end. Once BYU lost and lost emphatically, like I think there was a difference between a 3-point loss versus them getting crushed. Once that happened, that unlocked some things. I thought Alabama needed to beat Georgia, because what I thought they were going to do, I thought it was set up for a buffer to where Alabama would get their 1 spot drop for losing the SEC title game. They'd still get in at 10, and then they'd serve between Notre Dame and Miami so they wouldn't have to compare them. Notre Dame would get the 9, and what it also would have done, it would have avoided all these rematches. You'd have had Notre Dame going to Norman. Yeah. You'd have had Alabama going to A&M, who hadn't played, and it would have worked a lot better. Because now you got Bama and Oklahoma again, and you have another rematch, which we may get to. So I really thought it kind of worked out well. I will say I was on the edge of my seat. I'm probably the only person in the country watching Duke and Virginia over Ohio State and Indiana, because you just had that feeling like if we needed that little extra oomph, Duke winning was that little extra oomph. And we'll probably never know whether it was. They, Hunter Yurachek, the AD at Arkansas, said it wasn't, but they wouldn't go out and say yes. But the issue, and you could look at this from a cynical perspective, you had someone was going to be completely egregiously upset. Either Alabama was going to get dropped out and championship games were done forever. Miami was going to get left out, and we're completely ignoring the committee's stated process of head-to-head matching, or Notre Dame was going to get dropped out without even playing by a team that hadn't played. And frankly, I think Notre Dame would beat a lot of the teams in the playoff, which is another reason why they've got to be upset.
Right. So let me go back to what you said, Doug. And I think if there's anything, or at any time, and we've been talking about this, whether it's you and I or just sports fans in general, if there's any time that now the spotlight is on Notre Dame about having their own schedule and being in, I didn't realize there's only 2 independent teams in the nation, and it's Notre Dame and Connecticut. What do you think that if Notre Dame actually wants to get the respect they think they've earned, what do you think they need to do as far as scheduling and not having to be on this teeter-totter every year?
Well, they're not even in the conversation as far as I'm concerned. You know, I watch a lot of games and I break down films from a coach's standpoint. I'm going to tell you who the national champion's going to be. It's Georgia. Kirby Smart is the new Nick Saban. They destroyed Alabama by 21 points, as Chris said. Alabama got in there because of the politics and the fans they can bring. So there's a lot of politics behind closed doors, fellas. Notre Dame, to me, if they want the respect, getting back to your question, if they want that respect, they need to get in a conference. Come on in the SEC and let's see how good you are.
Right. Yeah. So, and I tell you what I've already heard, and this is what I don't like, and you're exactly right, Coach. You know, I've already heard that, because it's going to be tweaked again next year, that if Notre Dame is ranked in the top 12, they're going to be in. So they've already got that set. So if Notre Dame is in the top 12, they're going to be in next year. And I think they're also tweaking something with the conference champions. But for anybody that might be watching today or at a different time, you know, that's how Tulane and James Madison got in. It was the top 5 ranked conference champions. Well, remember a couple of years ago, we used to have the Pac-12. We don't have the Pac-12 anymore. So we're really down to just 4. We're down to the SEC, Big 10, Big 12, and ACC. Well, ACC, and Chris, I'm sure you were probably one of many fans that was like, Duke. Miami's ranked. Duke was ranked like 40th. And over their metrics, you know, they put them in. So now Tulane was going to get in because they were one of the top 4. They were ranked 20th. And James Madison got in because they were ranked 25th. So because of how the ACC really picked it, and listen, no offense to Duke, they beat my Wahoos. God bless them. I'm proud of them. But that's how those 2 group of 5s got in. And, you know, to what Chris said earlier, we've got a replay, let me think here, of Tulane. Yeah, Tulane at Mississippi. They lost in September 45-10, and they're now 17.5-point favorites. So, so I don't know. It's you know, ACC shot himself in the foot, and I got to tell you, and I'm like Doug. You can tell me what you want to tell me, and I know the commissioner said no, but then like Kirk Herbstreit or somebody said, that doesn't mean they weren't thinking, that some of those guys in that room weren't thinking, we got to get an ACC team in there. So you're right. If BYU would have won and it would have legitimately knocked out Miami, there would have been some issues. So, so what about, Coach, let me go back to you. Bama, you like Bama being in?
No, I don't. They have 3 losses.
Okay.
This new character that's coaching them, it's not Nick Saban anymore. This guy, you know, I don't know how long he's going to last. You know, he went into Georgia and just took a butt whipping, man, to put it easy and simple. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty for Alabama. Whatever. And I watched some other shows too, and the fans aren't real happy. But it's Alabama,
losing you guys.
And everybody thinks all you got to do is walk on the field and you're going to win. It doesn't work that way. Kirby Smart is the new Nick Saban. So if you got any money in the bank, put it on that game as Georgia being the next national champion. You'll make some money. I'm gonna borrow some money from you, Bill, so I can bet.
Yeah, I actually think, yeah, right. Wait a second. I haven't subbed anywhere this week, so I'm not sure. I want to share this real quick because I just want to, and this is something that you both have done a great job at bringing up. I want to show you. Let me find it here. Here we come. So here's the AP poll. So the AP poll this week got Indiana. I do legitimately think Georgia, just like you said, Doug, I think Georgia's the second best team. I'll be honest with you. I would have probably put Texas Tech third, but you can't take Ohio State losing by 3 and drop them more than 1. So I get that. But here's what I want to show you. So we've got this difference here, which really doesn't matter. And Chris knows this too, whether Georgia is second or third, Ohio, they're going to end up meeting up each other. So it doesn't really matter. But you look down here, Notre Dame is 9th, then Miami, then Alabama. So if things would have stayed like this, Alabama wouldn't have made it. When you go to the coaches poll, Notre Dame, Miami, Alabama. You go to the college football playoffs, Alabama, Miami, Notre Dame. So, yeah, I do have a little issue that, and I think Chris alerted to it earlier. Are we coming up with a ranking that fits an agenda we hope that happens? I mean, I don't know, Doug, what do you think? And just like Chris said, all of a sudden this past week, because the week before in the college football playoff, Notre Dame was ranked ahead of Miami. So it's just, I don't know. Doug, if you were Mr. Saban and you were going to be the new commissioner of the NCAA football process, what would you like to see change and how this works?
Well, I'd fire everybody and get me a new staff in there because college football it's out of control. It's just with this NIL and everything else that's going on. This platform here, you got Tulane and James Madison in there. Come on, man. They don't have a chance in the world to win a national championship. That whole format is just flawed as far as I'm concerned. From a coach's standpoint, I look at things from a coach's standpoint. You two are probably a little more analytical than I am, and you're thinking through these processes. But let me tell you something, man. You watch a game and you start breaking down the game film, offensive line, defensive line, coaching ability, you look at things totally different than you would on paper. But something has to be done. NCAA has to do something here with the whole process and NIL and paying these players. Lagway made $2.3 million at Florida, and only won 4 games. Something has to be done, but I think they're going to lose some fans if it doesn't happen. Yeah. I'm about fed up with it myself. Yeah. I'm about ready to go watch pickleball or something.
Yeah. No. So before I ask Chris a question, I'll tell you 2 things that I saw today. University of Utah is getting ready to sign a $500 million agreement with some capital company out there that will do athletic program. What that is, I didn't hear all, Doug. We're going down a rabbit hole that we're not going to be able to come back from. So, Chris, what about you?
Right.
The tough thing is, and Doug's exactly right. We when you got 68 teams, bring in all those guys. We got 12 spots. And 16% of those spots, and listen, I love James Madison. They're right up the road from my hometown in Virginia. But 16% of those spots are going to 2 teams that, listen, this ain't youth league. This isn't, country club weekend. You don't deserve to be in unless you're ranked in the top 12. I'm sorry. I love you. And I know Boise State, I've heard that. But maybe there should be some cap that unless you're in the top 12, we're not going to hand out free passes. Chris, what would you like to see changed? Do you think it should just be based on the top 12? Do you think we automatically let the conference champions in?
Well, I think there's something we're potentially glossing over here to begin with, and that is this will almost certainly be the last year this is a 12-team playoff. A couple weeks ago, I believe, the deadline was extended for the Big Ten and the SEC to decide how big the playoff will be. There's been an idea thrown out by the Big Ten to go to 24 teams. Might happen. And it's not because it's a good thing, but I would say at a minimum, we're going to have 16. It certainly will not be 12. I could see 14, but this will be more. So all these, what should we do in the future? Well, we got to know how big the playoff is, first of all. Because if it's 24 teams, well, then there's room for James Madison, quite honestly. If it's 12 teams, well, that's another thing. But to your point, I mean, think about, like, just as an example, this is hurting people money. As an example, TNT's got to be so excited. They get 2 playoff games, right? They're so stoked. All right. What 2 games do we got? Oh, we got Ole Miss and Tulane, and we got James Madison and Oregon. If you're an advertiser, you're not paying for second half commercials for those games because there may not be too many people watching, especially against the NFL. So I agree with you. Like, I think that would, I mean, we're expanding the playoffs for money anyway, right? Not because we think that there's some
that's all
thing or what have you. It's because we think we can make more money. That's why Utah did what it did today too, right? They're trying to get more money into the program. Eventually, that's going to be a horrible thing. But beyond that,
let me just say something real quick, Chris. Not to interrupt you, but from a coach's standpoint, a player's standpoint, you're playing 12 games, and now you're adding another 4 games. These kids cannot take this physically.
Right.
It's just crazy. It's not basketball where you run up and down the court. These kids are getting beat up. They get beat up. They get injured. They can't play 14, 15, 16 friggin' games to get to a national championship.
I would also say the more games that we add, the greater the risk we run for the best team not winning. As an example, I think we would agree Ohio State was the best team last year, but our national championship last year was the 7th seed against the 8th seed. Is that what we want?
Well, yeah, but you got to remember, and that's a good point, and that's why that was so convoluted, because the 4 conference champions got the top 4 seeds. But again, we're not picking the best players. And like Doug said earlier, it's politics. Okay, we're going to make the conference champions a top 4 speed. Oh, okay, we're going to let all the conference champions in. No, I don't care if it's 10 Big Ten teams and 2 S. If that's the best 12, and I'm going to go back to University of Florida, which, I'm in honor of Doug's hat today. I can remember when our great coach McElwain, was coaching Florida, and a couple of years in a row, we won the East Division. We were not that good, but the East Division was horrible. And as a fan, the first thing I thought of was, oh no, we got to go to Atlanta and play Alabama. And they boat raced us, I think, 2 years in a row. So again, when you and let's look at high school, Coach. Doug, you coach high school. We still let in football district champions in, but now the runner-up doesn't necessarily get in, because look at Merritt Island, Satellite, Titusville, and O'Galley. We've had 4 teams from the same district all get into the playoffs because there were 4 really good teams, and they should have. So until we keep giving out these free cards because, well, we got to let 2 of you in and 1 of you all in, you got to get the best teams no matter, where they come from. And I'm like you guys, listen, ACC with FSU, Miami, Clemson, who would have thought they'd be where they are right now? And again, Virginia, they can control their own destiny, and they kind of let it down. So, but I thought that was interesting looking at the AP and the coaches poll. They were exactly the same. And then you got to the college football poll, and things were just kind of moved in a different direction. Let me ask you real quick. Let's look at some of these bowl games. And Doug, I'll start with you, or bowl teams. So I looked up today, Notre Dame, Iowa State, Kansas State. I'm going to set those aside for a second. Auburn, Baylor, Rutgers, FSU, UCF, Kansas, Temple. All of those teams opted out. Those last 7 teams are 5-7. And they're basically saying, hey, listen, we're 5-7. Some 5-7 teams can get in because we had 41 bowl games. And if there's not 82 teams with 6 wins, then they can get in. And they were just saying, hey, listen, don't call us. So I get that. Kansas State has been fined $500,000 by the Big 12 because they are bowl eligible, and Iowa State. And Chris and I were talking earlier, and I went and I looked at, just like you, Doug, I did some research and why. And I understand that because Iowa State and Chris and I were talking about earlier, they got a new coach. They got a lot of guys that are in the portal. They got kids that are beat up, and they just said, hey, we don't want to, put a product on the field. Some of these other teams that are 5-7, I read about them. They said, hey, listen, our kids have already gone home for Christmas. We don't have that. They've already left. We got kids banged up. So when I see that, I understand it a little bit better. But Doug, Notre Dame, is that just somebody taking their ball and go home, or did they make the right choice?
Well, I think that's part of it, Bill, but I think it also, these kids are opting out. These self-serving players that we have nowadays, they don't want to get injured. I used to watch NFL. I don't watch it anymore because of the kneeling for the national anthem. But back in the day, you probably remember this, Bill, you're old enough, but the Pro Bowl was something that, man, you earned that. And they got in there and it was a battle in there. But now they're playing 2-hand touch. So these kids are not, they don't want to get hurt for their NFL career. I get it. I get it. Right. But and they're opting out. So I think bowl games are obsolete. I can't think of one I'd want to watch, to be honest with you. And the attendance on them. I mean, look at what was it? Last year or 2 years ago, Florida State went down to play Georgia, and all the several kids didn't play for Florida State. It was a massacre, but it's no fun. It's no fun for the fans.
Yeah. And before I get to you, Chris, and you bring up a good point, and I thought about that game a couple years ago, FSU, undefeated. I don't want to tick off my Florida State fans. I think we all knew they weren't one of the top teams in the nation. We all kind of knew that. Would that have been an opportunity because they knew all these guys were opting out, that Norvell should have said, hey, we don't want to play because they're going to play Georgia, and got crushed. Like I said, you feel for the kids, but you're right, Doug. You got these kids opting out. We got coaches bouncing back and forth, the way the calendar, and I've seen all this too. I think the tough thing is, like with Notre Dame, you got a kid that woke up Sunday morning thinking they might have a chance to play for the national championship. And then a couple hours later, they find out their season is done. What do you say, Chris?
Now, if I was coaching for Notre Dame or one of these other schools, let me just interject here real quick, not to be rude, but if I was coaching one of these teams that opted out, as a coach, I wouldn't opt out. I would play. I would go ahead and play because you're going to make money. The school's going to make money. Plus the fact you can get some game experience for your younger players, and to be in that situation, pressure cooker. That's good experience for younger players. The kids that don't want to play, hit the door. Go to the transfer portal. But there's no loyalty to colleges anymore. This minor league football is what it is. Call it what it is. It's minor league football. The kids are not loyal to the school. They're after the money, and that's sad for the fans that work hard every day. All us guys that go out and lay brick or whatever, hanging on the back of a garbage truck or whatever. We're earning our money, and we pay a lot of money for these tickets, and we're not getting a good product. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and before I ask you, Chris, one thing that I heard today that I didn't agree with, and I think the world over, I think she does a phenomenal job. It's Heather Dinich on ESPN. I think she's one of the most intelligent individuals when it comes to college football. But she talked about that the bowl games, maybe didn't matter anymore or what's going to get out. But I got to say, and we'll find out Saturday, that Ohio State-Indiana game, I'm thinking the winner of that game decided the Heisman Trophy winner. So I do think that conference championship games. I'd hate to see that go out. The only thing I'll say, and I'll turn over to you, Chris, is like with Alabama, for instance, or BYU, maybe, you can look at it as being a penalty, but if you lose and you're not in the top 12 or 16, which it may be this coming year, do we give you a free pass? Because you've already lost. It's almost like the first round of the playoffs. You've already lost a game against somebody that's going to go in. But bowl games, Chris, you still like them? You think they're going to stay around? You're right, Doug. You look at some of these bowl games that start on the 19th, there's nobody there. Nobody's watching those. So what do you think, Chris? Bowl games, is it going to change?
So what I think will happen, and I'll use this analogy as a Miami fan last year. We played Iowa State in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Miami opted not to play defense, as they usually did pretty much at the end of the year. But they had the game won with Cam Ward because Iowa State had no chance to stop the Cam Ward-led offense. Cam Ward sat the second half out.
I forgot.
And Miami lost. They still could have won the game, honestly. But Miami lost the game because of it.
Yeah.
And it just leaves – and I was going to go to the game, and I thought, I would really feel aggrieved if I spent that money and that happened. I understand completely. I'm of two minds here. If you're a sure lock first-round pick, I think you should opt out. But I think you can help yourself by putting good tape on if you are a third, fourth, fifth rounder. So that I think I'm kind of two minds there. What I do think is when the playoff expands, I think, and I'm borrowing this thought from Rick Neuheisel because he's right. I think bowl games are going to go to the start of the year. I think you're going to have kickoff, kind of like. So when you see like Virginia Tech and South Carolina played in Atlanta this year in the Chick-fil-A Classic. Okay, so instead of that, you'll have teams scheduling. Okay, the Cheez-It Bowl, we're going to have two teams kick off, and you're going to have a bunch of kickoff classics week one at those bowl. Some of them will probably just go away, and you might have some of the minor ones stick around for the group of fives, because I do think. I think that the bowls for your App States and your Texas States and UTEPs and all that, I think there's more value there than there might be for like these teams that finished 8th in a power conference. But there can be value at the same time. Like you're getting a look, like as an example, again, I'll use Miami last year. Emory Williams got to play the second half of that game. And they want to say, okay, do we have our quarterback next year or not? We do not. Hello, Carson Beck. And so that was a valuable tool for Miami to learn what they had. So you can still get something out of that. I would also say on the team, with respect to the teams opting out, I have no problem with the 5 and 7 teams opting out. It's a logistical issue. The players are sometimes spread around. The coaches are. They've been, out of football shape for, a week or so, not out of that routine and maybe having to get back in. It's a logistical thing. And they feel like they didn't earn it too. So I differentiate between Notre Dame and Iowa State and Kansas State. And I differentiate between the 5 and 7 teams and the rest.
Right. I agree with that.
Right. All right. So let's take a quick look here. So Doug, let's look at that first round. I'm looking at the odds. Alabama is actually a 1.5 point favorite over Oklahoma because they did only lose by 2 to Oklahoma, though it was a home game. Tulane, 17.5 points underdog to Mississippi. Miami is a 3.5 point favorite over Texas A&M, and Oregon is a 21.5 point favorite over JMU. Anything? Who?
Miami is.
Yeah, Miami's the underdog, right?
Yeah.
Miami's favored over Texas A&M.
Yeah.
I don't know about that,
right? Or did I write that down wrong?
No, they're the underdogs.
I think
they started out as a 5.5 point underdog. It's come.
They're the underdog.
Miami's the underdog.
3.5. So, Doug, So anything in that first round? Any of those 4 games? You got any surprises? Are we looking at Oregon, Ole Miss? I don't know. What do you think about Alabama, Oklahoma?
I think that'll be a good game. Depending on, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors, who's injured, who's not. I had a great quarterback in 1988 by the name of Chris Hall. If he went down, Doug Cook would have been fired probably, and had a losing season. So you got to find out what the injuries are. Impact players are the ones that win games for you. So I don't know, but I'd probably go with Oklahoma. I'm not so sure Alabama not unwinding, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the only thing I like about that game, two things. One, that quarterback is back for Oklahoma, and when he's healthy, Macheras, he puts on a good show. And the last two games, like Chris said earlier, I don't know that in the last two games. Now, I did hear something from the coach at Alabama that they had a lot of guys beat up. We got 2 weeks before those games are. So, but I'm like you. I think at home, I kind of like Oklahoma. What about your Hurricanes, Chris? That's only a 3.5 point difference. I think that's going to be a better game. I think it's going to be a field goal game.
I'm nervous thinking about Miami and Texas A&M because I just think 102,000 screaming for on a normal game, much less for a playoff game 5 days before Christmas. They get a little bit of a break, it being an 11 a.m. kick for A&M. So allegedly, there's a bit of a curse with College Game Day. They're 1-10 Texas A&M when hosting College Game Day all time. So kind of hoping that continues a little bit. I'm like everybody else. I feel like Alabama and Oklahoma is that field goal. It feels like 1916, like something like that, like kind of like was the first game. Honestly, Macheras had not been healthy. He came back a little early from his hand injury. He wasn't good against Texas. They were outgained by 200 yards by Alabama in the first game. And the other thing you got to remember for Alabama's not going to be able to run the ball at all, even though they're going to have Jam Miller back against that Oklahoma defense. So I think Oklahoma making them one-dimensional. It's a really tough game to pick. I'm going to take Oklahoma at night. I just think they'll squeak by. Oh, Miami's a tough one to pick. It really is. There are reasons I can. We talk about these leagues being too big. Every team in the SEC, Texas A&M beat, was below 500 in the SEC. They got the schedule break. You compare their schedule to Florida's, it's not even close. There's that. Yeah. They did lose to Texas, so you wonder what type of impact that has on them. Does it knock them down? Does it refocus them? I'm with you. I think it's a really close game. I think 27-24 somebody
like that. Doug, let's go to the second round. Let's say Oregon moves over. If they don't, then everything we've talked about goes out the window. I'll be honest with you. I think Texas Tech and Georgia are the two. And listen, I love Indiana. You might have seen my post. My dad went to IU for a year after the Army. I'm a big Hoosier fan. I love that coach. I think Texas Tech and Georgia are the best two teams. You think Oregon or Texas Tech in that second round, Coach?
I take Texas Tech. I'm with you on that. This is a different atmosphere here. This is do or die. So these kids hopefully will be given 110% on every play. But penalties are going to hurt you, just like it did Alabama on that block punt, against Georgia. That broke their bones right there. But I like this, getting back to Texas A&M real quick. I had a note there. That's a great coach right there. He's turned that program around in 1 year. And I worked with a great coach at Merritt Island High School by the name of Coach Gerald Odom. And he said, to be successful, you have to work while the other guy is sleeping. And this coach made that comment in a interview that I listened to. So Texas A&M is going to be up there, I think. But Oregon, I don't know. I don't know about Oregon. There's a lot of talk about Oregon. They look good. Their uniforms look great, but they never go anywhere. They win a few games, but a lot of games, but they're not really relevant. Like a Georgia, Alabama.
Right. And I think the guy at A&M is from Duke, right? Elko. I think he came from Duke a couple years ago. I think Indiana will win that second game, whether they play Alabama, Oklahoma. But you guys are right. There's no telling, because when you take out Tulane and you take out James Madison, any one of those other teams, if I've seen them play games this year where they could beat anybody. I've seen a lot of them play games where they couldn't beat their way out of a paper bag. So yeah, I think Alabama could beat Indiana. I think Oklahoma could beat them. Ole Miss and Georgia beat Ole Miss earlier this year. I didn't write down what that score was. Do you give Ole Miss a chance in that one, Chris?
Well, there's a couple things that I do want to point out with respect to sites in the second round. So you might think, okay, Ohio State, Indiana game really didn't matter. One was 2. So Indiana's going to be in the Rose Bowl, which just for aesthetics is really cool. Right. But what it also did, Ohio State had the choice. They could have played in the Orange Bowl or they could have played in the Cotton Bowl. Now, here's the problem. Miami is one team and Texas A&M is the other. So Miami wins, you play them in the Orange Bowl. And if Ohio State plays A&M, you play them in the Cotton Bowl. So if A&M wins, they're going to play a virtual road game against Texas A&M. The other thing, Georgia will have to play Ole Miss in New Orleans. You got to figure that's going to be a heavy crowd. And if for some reason Tulane wins, it's in their home city. So there are some interesting things. Also,
yes, right.
Also, we talk about Oregon. Oregon would be playing in the Orange Bowl. The national championship is also in Miami. Oregon could have to go to Miami twice in 3 weeks. Yikes. Good luck to the fans showing out money for that. As far as the second round games go, I will say this. I think one of the JMU or Tulane games will be close for a while. One of them. I can't even tell you which one. My gut tells me James Madison might give Oregon a half. But that's neither here nor there. I do think we agree Oregon and Ole Miss and move on. I like Texas Tech over Oregon. I think Texas Tech has as good a defense as any in the country. If you watch that BYU game, they just stifled BYU. I think Indiana's got, again, this is an advantage for them over Ohio State. They've got a really great draw. I think the two weakest Power 5 teams in the field are meeting in the first round, Alabama and Oklahoma. And I think Indiana will get the bet. Yeah. Kind of crazy how Alabama's like the Cinderella against powerful, undefeated Indiana. Like, that's just weird. Ole Miss outplayed Georgia for 3 quarters in Athens the last time they played. It would not surprise me if Ole Miss beats Georgia. And I would say this: the 6 and 7 seeds, I think, should be reversed. I think A&M should have been 6, and Ole Miss should have been 7. There's a massive difference between those two teams because now Ole Miss has got to have. And the 5 and 6 seeds, I think, actually have an advantage over the 3 and 4 seeds because Georgia and Texas Tech are going to sit around for a month. Ole Miss and James Madison get a little bit of a break, or Oregon get a little bit of a break, but they're not really in danger of losing. So that's a really thing. I got a feeling Ole Miss might take Georgia. I love their talent level. Right. Obviously, the questions with the coaching, but I kind of like Ole Miss there. And then I do like Ohio State over whomever advances there. I'll say for a homer, I'll say Miami. I think Miami's offense would have a very tough time with Ohio State's defense. I think if everybody plays their best game, Ohio State's winning the championship.
I think,
So let me ask you, Doug, we know that Ole Miss
is missing a coach.
I was just going to ask you with and that's what I was going to ask you. It's one thing, they're missing the head coach, but the defensive coordinator stepped up, so they've got some consistency there. But with you having more coaching experience than us, and Chris even has more than I do, I can get by that. But Lane also took a whole bunch of offensive coaches with him. I don't know. I think that might be an issue. What do you think?
Oh, definitely. I think it's going to be a big problem. First of all, these kids, if you've done any coaching, and both of you have, you build relationships with the kids. And you got to keep in mind, I mean, these kids are making millions of dollars, but they're still kids, and they just lost their head football coach that they're thinking, well, gosh, he just left us. Here we are in the playoffs for the first time in a long time, and he leaves us, and they're hurt. They're hurting. That can go two ways. It can go the other way too. Like, well, we're going to show Coach Kippen that we're going to win this national championship, or he could say, hey, man, I'm bummed out that Coach left us, because I had that relationship with him, and he knew how to motivate me. When I got down on the sideline, he would say something, I'd get motivated and play a lot better. Coaching has so much to do with it, so I think it's going to hurt him, and I expect Georgia to win that game.
Yeah, I'm like you. And listen, let's not sell JMU and Tulane too short. I mean, those guys, they got nothing to lose. If they lose, they are expected to. I mean, if there's any teams that are going to be playing loosey-goosey. Now, we do have to remember, those are two teams that got two coaches that are staying to coach, and then they're moving on. One of those coaches, of course, Tulane being the Florida Gator new coach. So you're right, Coach. It's still a mental game. Yeah, these guys might be 23, 24. They're still kids. So, Chris, as we wrap up, who you got in the final and who's taking it all?
I just got this darn feeling about Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech and Indiana could be like a first to 13 game. I just got a feeling about them. I feel like no one has talked about them. I bet you 80% of people who are watching that BYU game this Saturday were watching Texas Tech for the first time. Guess what? I was one of them.
I think.
I was pretty impressed. And I feel like Texas Tech's going to go on a run. I don't love myself for this, but I think they beat Indiana in the semis. On the other one, I'll take Ohio State over whomever. Ohio State, I guess I have them over Ole Miss, just to go a little less chalky. And my national title is Ohio State and Texas Tech. I can't bring myself to pick Texas Tech over Ohio State. Ohio State's just got, when you've got Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate at wide receiver, Bo Jackson at running back, Heisman, finalist at quarterback, probably not going to win it. And what I think is one of the best defenses in college football. It's just a complete team. And you saw what a loss at the end did last year for them with Michigan. It could happen again. So it's a little chalky, but I like Ohio State over Texas Tech in the national title game.
All right. Coach, what do you think? Who do you got in the final two, and who's hosting up the hardware?
Well, first of all, here's some factors you got to keep in mind. Injuries, who gets the breaks, penalties, and I had an old coach tell me many years ago, whoever blocks and tackles the best is going to win the game. So I got to go with Georgia. I was born and raised in Georgia. I'm not a real Georgia fan now because of the state of Georgia, because of their politics. But I got to go with Georgia over whoever they're playing, whoever they in. I don't know who's going to be in there, but I got to go with Georgia as the national champions. Kirby Smart is too smart. He's a great coach. Yeah. And another thing about a great coach, they're able to make changes at halftime.
Right.
He's one of the best I've seen this year. At halftime, he comes out and they make adjustments, and they're physical. Their defensive coordinator is a great coach. He comes up with schemes that I haven't seen any other team doing, and I wish we'd had him at Florida. We might have won a few more games, but I'm going with Georgia.
Yeah, I got to say, if everything falls into place, if Oregon moves over, either Alabama or Oklahoma, Ole Miss, either Miami or Texas A&M, we got some really good second round games. You get into that Final Four. Yeah, you got, and let's just say Indiana, let's say the top four seeds move on, Indiana, Texas Tech, Georgia, Ohio State. Man, that's like must-watch TV. I'm going to go, as much as it hurts me, -3 yards. Georgia held Alabama to rushing. I'm going to take Georgia over Ohio State. I think Texas Tech, I think they're going to rattle Heisman Mendoza, they call him, because they think he's going to win the Heisman. I think it's going to be Georgia over Texas Tech in the final. So, but again, whatever that Final Four looks like, we're going to have some really good games. And I'm like you guys. I hope that Miami, Texas A&M, and Alabama, Oklahoma are the games that we think they're going to be, because the other games may not. But to coaches' comments, Ole Miss, all those coaches leaving, Tulane, Loosey Goose, that might surprise us. So, again, I think, and hopefully the optics and the process, and even to Coach's point, I think I posted the other day, listen, I'll go 14 teams. Let's have James Madison and Tulane play a play-in game against BYU and Texas, or Texas and Vandy. But, and that's what the next division does. They've got 24 teams, 8 teams get a bye, 16. And listen, I don't know if you saw it last week, number 1 seed North Dakota State got beat. So they're already out. So anything can happen, but did the same thing I have. When you only got 12 spots, you got to go back to the little kids table. You can't come play basketball, 68 spots. Everybody can get in. But anyway, it's going to be exciting. A lot of stuff happened the past couple of days between this and the bowl games and opting out. And we'll see what happens in the next 5 days. But I appreciate you guys being on again. It's the best time of the year as far as college football. I know we got NFL playoffs. I watch the NFL, not as much of a fan as I am with college. And I'm looking forward to the next few weeks. So, Chris, last words. What do you want to leave us with before we go?
I really hope that the games are. We last year's first round was 4 blowouts. I really hope that the games are competitive. I know we think 2 of them have a chance to not be. Like I said, I think 1 is going to surprise us. I'm not even sure which one. My gut tells me one of them is going to surprise us a little bit. But I just hope overall that Miami A&M. I mean, I hope Miami wins by 1 million, but more than anything, I hope that the playoffs have some good games. One other thing of note, I believe this is true. If Georgia wins, Georgia's semifinal, which would presumably be against Ohio State, would be in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, because that would be Georgia's 3rd time playing in Mercedes-Benz Stadium this year. So that's a tremendous advantage for them. So a rematch of that game where Ohio State missed a kick as the New Year's ball dropped to midnight there to
I remember that.
So that'd be quite a game. But overall, it should be a great playoff. I'm glad that the dispute part is over, and now we just get to watch the action on the field and hope for the best.
Coach, what do you think? What parting words you have for all of us college football fans as far as what to look forward to the next couple of weeks now that all the noise is over?
Well, one thing I got to remember too is who has been to the national championship before and how many times.
Right.
A lot of these teams have never been in this environment. And I think back in '88 when I was coaching at Cocoa, we got beat 7-6, and Cocoa had never been in this situation in the playoffs, and we were ranked number 1 in the state for several weeks. And we should have won the game, but we didn't play our best game. And I think that's going to be a big factor here. If these teams have not been in this environment with this pressure, like Georgia's been there, Ohio State's been there, it's gonna be a big factor here. And I think Indiana, they've rolled their car probably as far as they're going to go. But I do like them. A good Christian environment this coach has there. These kids, it was exciting for them. I was pulling for them because I'm a Bobby Knight fan from the get-go. But I'm saying the Dogs, go Dogs, baby.
Yeah, I think they're tough. And in closing, I'm like you. I love Indiana. As I said, when I asked my dad why he went there, he said they were the only school that responded to his letters after he got out of the Army. So I've always been an IU fan. Of course, it's usually just been basketball. As much as I love Indiana, as much as they beat Ohio State and they're 13-0 and probably going to have the Heisman Trophy winner, there's still that little bug in the back of my head that's like, it's Indiana, So I don't know.
If Ohio hadn't missed that field goal, could have been a totally different situation.
What was that? 29 yards?
Chip shot.
Yeah,
27. I think I could have kicked that.
Yeah, geez. I've seen guys
on
college game.
I want to get on game day. I want to get on game day and kick one.
Yeah, I know. Make a $500,000.
I could have made 27 yards.
But and to Chris's point, Alabama only lost by a couple points to Oklahoma, so that game, is going to be, this is like you, Coach. This is when the coaching comes in. But at the end of the day, listen, if it wasn't for all this noise, we'd have nothing to talk about. I'm like Chris. I just hope after 4 months and hundreds of games, we've got some games that are going to be worth watching. Yeah, we might have a couple blowouts at the beginning, but getting into that next round in the semis and the finals, we could have some of the best matchups that we've ever seen. And if I can get that as a true fan, I'll be happy. So again, this is week 1 after the college football final bracket has come out. And again, I appreciate my guest, Chris Bonanno, joining Doug Cook and I here live on Pressbox Overtime. Maybe we'll do this again next week. Let's see what kind of noise we got coming up over the next few days. And for anybody that might have watched or watches later, Pressbox Overtime, as we always say, sports, it's more than just a game. We just spent 30, 60 minutes talking about it. So on behalf of Chris, Doug, I'm Bill. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Take care.
Let me